Live from the BTL Global Headquarters in the iHeartCard studio, it's BTL Live. Today's topic is, are we in a bull market for soccer cards? Join BTL as he discusses the ins and outs of the current market and does a deep dive into the numbers to figure out what's really surging. Live now, here's the man himself, Mr. Breaking the Law.
All right, thank you for that really beautiful introduction. As it was said, I am BTL, Breaking the Law, and coming to you live from the new iHeartCard studio here in the BTL Global Headquarters. We have a very exciting topic today. I am flying solo for the day, so please feel free to drop any questions, comments, concerns. Let me know your thoughts. We are going to talk about what is driving the current soccer surge. Many people have called it a bull market. What is driving this market? It all started off. It all started off when the Lamine Yamal surge took off, and we're going to get into the details a little bit. But it has accelerated rapidly in the past few weeks, and we are being primarily driven at the top of the market by the sale of this singular card, Lionel Messi, 2004-5 Panini Mega Cracks, 71 bis. PSA 10. Last reported sale was in the $300,000 range before the National, and then Golden announced at the National that they had brokered a deal to sell a card for $825,000. And then about a month after that, there's another announcement that a private sale was brokered for $1.1 million. And then after that, Fanatics Collect, not to be outdone, announced that they had brokered a private transaction for $1.5 million. So at the top of the market, we are very much being kind of pulled along by this Messi rookie. But I kind of wanted to get into where else are cards going up, what other players are going up, and who's maybe lagging behind, and kind of forecast what we can expect here in the next coming months. I think the first question, so one of the things that you see a lot on social media, and it feels very much like one person posts it and then it's just going to be reposted across several accounts. But one of the things that really kind of struck me is, how do we define what is a bull market for cards? And so in general, a time when prices are rising and market sentiment is optimistic, a bull market occurs when there is a rise of 20% or more over at least a 2-month period. So that seems kind of, relatively straightforward in terms of, okay, we're going to be looking for over a 2-month period, a rise of 20% or more. That'll generally get us into the bull market realm, and then kind of figure out where we go from there. So kind of doing some research, I was able to narrow it down to three main things that we would want to check on to see whether we're in a soccer card bull market. Because kind of my theory has been, we're in a selective bull market for certain players, and then particularly like the high-end cards of those players. So obviously the 71 bis kind of being a prime example of that, but we've seen record sales for flawless cards, eminence cards, kabooms. The best cards of the best players in the best sets have been doing extremely well. And so kind of my hypothesis was, that's just kind of not skewing the numbers, but dictating why it seems like we are in this accelerated bull market. Let's dive deep into the data and see if we can figure out whether that's correct or not. So the first thing we want to do is kind of check price action. So what this means is that you want to go to the Card Ladder Index and kind of figure out, because that's the one metric that we have, figure out, just how strong is the market surging, where are we at, where have we been, and kind of look at the graphs and see if, at least from a high-level perspective, it does seem like we're in a surge, which it definitely feels like we are. Number two would be, we want to check the breadth of the surge. And so what this means, and this is kind of where my hypothesis will be tested, is the surge applying to 70% or more of the market? Meaning, if you look at the players who are collectible, tradable, sellable, the folks that people buy and sell, are their markets increasing? And so Card Ladder helps us a lot here, because it does have player index, where we could just quickly check what a particular player's market is doing. But then also, we got to kind of broaden our scope and broaden our horizons because there's some newer players or younger players that Card Ladder is not yet tracking. So we'll kind of get into that. And then the last thing is we're going to look for cross-market confirmation. So the question is, are we just in a general overall bull market for all cards and that's pulling soccer along with it? Or are we in a strong market for cards and soccer is kind of leading the way? And we'll get into that. So 3 main points we're going to look at. First things first, we want to check price action. And so what we mean here is that we want to kind of look at the major tracking tools that we have at our disposal and see if, soccer is really surging like we think. And so what we have is a chart from Card Ladder. All the data is provided courtesy of our friends at Card Ladder from January of this year through yesterday. And so what Card Ladder does, for those of you who don't know, is it not only reports, sales prices from eBay, Fanatics Collect, Alt, Golden, Heritage. It will also report private sales that have been verified by Card Ladder. So if they're able to verify with the buyer that a sale has been commenced at a certain price, you can actually have that sale published on Card Ladder. In addition to that, Card Ladder aggregates all of this data and presents it in useful ways, both in terms of various indexes that they create by segment. So you'll have a soccer, a baseball, a basketball, a football, but also allows you to create your own index. So like you'll see, I could go into Card Ladder and select the cards that I want to track and kind of tell what's happened in that market. So a few things to note. Obviously, year to date, the rate of growth is almost up 200%. So significant growth across the soccer card market. We're going to look at the cards that are kind of used to determine that rate of growth. But you could see kind of in the bottom right of that set of numbers that total cards 1,874. So that's 1,874 different cards of different players that are being tracked to contribute to this overall rate of growth. So we'll look at what those cards are in a minute, but I think it's very interesting to note that it's not just a few dozen or a few hundred cards here that are kind of dictating this growth, but we're tracking almost 2,000 different cards. One of the things that's interesting is you kind of look back to 2020 through 2025. And even though, we had a very exciting season, Liverpool winning the Premier League, PSG winning the Champions League, and you had very popular teams in the semifinals of the Champions League, you don't really have much of an uptick throughout, the second half of the season through the Champions League final. It starts to tick up a little bit, May into June, around the time that Champions League final is taking place. But it's pretty kind of just like slow and steady growth through July, through the National, through the SoCo Expo. And then we hit August and we have our first kind of escalator here on the stair, right? So we have a sudden spike in August, which I suspect is represented by that $1 million, the $825,000 Messi sale. And then more steady acceleration, and then another shorter jump, and then more steady acceleration. And now kind of here, once we hit September, we've taken some massive leaps in the past couple weeks. And I don't think it's all down to Barcelona winning the Copa del Rey like Beto would have you think. But yeah, you can think whatever you want, I guess. But let's get Beto in the mix here. I think dragged along by these Messi sales, we've seen these spikes, but they're definitely real spikes. I mean, those are real. Kind of zooming in here, like it's a significant. That's what you want to see in a bull market, is you want to kind of see these like stair type graphs kick into place where you're having this like period of steep increase and then a leveling off, and then a period of steep increase and then a leveling off for the bull market, right? So that this is all very indicative of there being a soccer card bull market, particularly over the past 2 months, since this sudden jump in August. This is interesting to me. So this is going back to the beginning of Card Ladder started tracking this data, I think in 2020, even though it lets us go back to 2004. But one of the other things that you kind of want to look at to determine whether you're in a true bull market is, are we at or close to an all-time high in terms of market performance? And so you'll see, late 2021, 2022 is that market peak, just north of 25,000. But we're already, within the past several weeks, we've eclipsed that all-time high in terms of soccer cards as a whole, and are still kind of accelerating greatly upward, at least as of this moment. So what's interesting here is that soccer is technically at an all-time high according to this data, and we could talk about whether you believe the data or not, but what has definitely happened is that we have eclipsed, according to Card Ladder, the all-time high for soccer that was set in the COVID boom 2021, early 2022. And so one of the things that I like to kind of examine is, what are the cards that make up this Card Ladder information? And so let me see if I can just kind of move, stand by. Okay, so what you're going to see here is, there we go. Now you can kind of see the card. This is the cards that are in the Card Ladder Index, and so at the top, the score, if you look on the far right, the score is not how much the index is weighing it. That's just the volatility, the surge of that particular card. So you can see, like, obviously, this whole thing is being dragged along. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody who's in this space to know that this whole thing has kind of been dragged along by the Messi 71 bis PSA 10, right? You've had record sale after record sale after record sale now, 3 of them in a row, or at least high sale lately. And that is getting a score of 40,000 on the index. So it's about 60 times more popular compared to its next card, which is the same card in a PSA 8 format. So the Messi rookie's dragging us along. And then interestingly enough, the third highest ranked card here is not the Cristiano Ronaldo rookie Mega Crack, but it is his premier or debut World Cup card in 2006. And again, more bis. You get the 617 Mundi Chromo makes an appearance. Some of the other Messi rookies are making appearances here a little bit further down the list. We get into an interesting 2020 Merlin Messi. And then you get into the Messi 2006 debut, an Erling Haaland rookie sticker, Boppy rookie sticker, Lamine Yamal Mega Cracks, bis finally makes its appearance. That was kind of one of the crazy outliers that maybe set this whole thing off several months ago. A crazy price on that high pop card. You get into some Ronaldo, Prism World Cup, Haaland, Sapphire rookie, more Mbappe, Zidane Kaboom. So, you could definitely see that there's a bunch of cards. There's 1,000 cards that are kind of at play here. To Martin's point, yeah, Martin has a good point here too. It's not just prices, it's volume too. Let's pop over to, can we see the volume here? Yeah, so the sales volume, I don't know if you can see this or not. No, you can only see, hold on. You can only see the sales. I want the volume to pop up here. Sales volume also through the roof, like near highs in the month of September as well. Average daily volume in the past 6 months of 77,000. Just kind of a crazy amount of transactions taking place. So yeah, super interesting. Oh, don't you worry. We're going to talk about Madrid. So price action is crazy, right? We've seen the index is up, the volume sales are up, like it's all up. So then the question that I kind of have been kicking around in my head lately is, like, I know it's a Lamine Yamal based starting point, and I know then that Messi has kind of taken over I think because people looked at what the Yamal cards were going for and thought to themselves, well, wait a minute. He's just a kid. Messi's our greatest of all time, arguably. Most people would agree, except Ronaldo fans. And why are his cards not worth more than Yamal, right? And so then you get the Messi spike. And then I think a lot of collectors look around and say, well, wait a minute. If these Messi cards are worth this, there's no way that the Ronaldo card should be worth 10 to 20 times less than that. So you kind of get a dragging along of the Ronaldo market. And I agree with all that. Like, that is all too widespread to be like price fixing or, people trying to protect their cards. Like, it's just too widespread at this point. The question I have is this going to both trickle down to lower tier cards, right? So not just your 71 bis PSA 10, but like, is it going to trickle down to like Messi Gold of 50, Messi Aqua Speckled of 199, right? Will it trickle down to those cards? And then really the thing that I'm more interested in is, does it represent a more widespread soccer sector, easy for you to say, surge? Meaning, is it a widespread market surge, or is this just kind of capped at a few guys with their best cards? So I want to check the breadth of the surge. That's what I mean. So we obviously know Lamine Yamal kind of took off like a madman here, although on the chart it looks like more steady growth and then huge spikes lately. But he's up 206% just in the past 6 months. Lionel Messi up 290% over the same time period. You'll see that the spike for Messi comes kind of, Yamal has this like steady surge through August and then really spikes mid-August, but Messi gets his major spike in early August. I do believe that that's the $825,000 71 bis PSA 10, that first PSA 10 sale. Cristiano Ronaldo also kind of jumping in the mix here with a respectable 217% growth. And again, you see steady growth throughout the year, through August, through mid-August. Kind of takes a couple of those little mini steps up, and then a gigantic step up at the end of August, I think, with the PSA 10 sale of his rookie. So everybody's up. Those three guys are up. The question is, what about everybody else? And this is really where I'm headed to, is, will it apply to other players, and then will it trickle down to the quote-unquote purple platypuses, which I think you're missing at least 3 S's. So the Soccer Cards HQ, what he's saying is his kind of mockery of like crazy high numbered parallels that nobody cares about, right? These cards that have no collectability, are they also going up? And so let's go to the next slide. So I started to pull out and look at other players, right? So I want to see some of the other popular players who have a player index in Card Ladder. That's one of the challenges here, is that not all of the players that I'd like to look at have an index. And then what have they done? And I kind of had to strip away people who have had a move this year, and the people who had a major kind of event happen, like they won a major tournament, or they had, like I said, they had a big move. So we kind of have to remove them from the analysis, because they should see a spike around those events. So if we think of Jude Bellingham, he's kind of one of the marquee players in the soccer card market, a major rookie out of the 2020 class, has big cards, plays for England, plays for Real Madrid. In theory, if the soccer card sector is surging, his card should be going up. Now, there's some conditional factors at play here, right? Suffers a injury, so he's currently not playing, and his team was eliminated from both Champions League pretty unceremoniously, and did not win the league, lost the league famously to everyone's favorite club, Barcelona. So, you kind of see that represented in May. He comes back down to reality here in early May, around the time of those events. But again, I'm still kind of looking at, okay, if you factor in that dip, right? Let's just say from that dip forward. So I bring that forward through September. He's still kind of level. Like, he's down over the past 6 months, and he's injured right now, but he's still kind of level. he's not totally, he's maybe slightly up since then. Okay. So that's Jude Bellingham. Then we go to Musiala, also hurt, but he is one of the main kind of market benchmarks that we will look at as, again, part of that 2020 class, the best overall rookie class in ultra modern soccer, and, highly collectible, plays for a major club, plays for a major country that's going to be in the mix. Also is injured, right? So we have that kind of limiting factor here. Takes a nosedive in June, around the time I think of his injury. And then, has just kind of been steady. So not up, but he's also out injured. So I don't think you could tell a lot from that, although their markets are down year to date, and he is kind of the Bundesliga benchmark at this point. A player who's not currently hurt, but it is, always kind of the subject of controversy, is Vinny Jr. By all accounts, one of the best players in the world. Plays for a major national team and starts in a great position for a major club team. Say what you want about him, but he is down 25% in the past 6 months. His drop-off kind of begins with the Champions League exit, and then just really has continued. Like going down with no signs of any kind of recovery. Erling Haaland. This is the one that confuses me the most. Like, by anyone's estimation, if Erling Haaland played for Barcelona, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, his cards would probably be through the roof. It doesn't make a lot of sense that for a player who scores with the frequency that he scores, that plays on a major club team that is still competitive, across all competitions, and plays for a national team that is most likely going to make the World Cup, that his cards have been as volatile as they have been. And so you just kind of see that volatility represented here in the chart. He is down 4% year to date, but he's kind of spiked up since the season has come back, which has been great. He had a major drop in the month of July, and then he's kind of like up and down, and kind of trying to get back to where he was at the beginning of the year. I think that in the Erling Haaland market, so he is down over the past 6 months, but he's showing signs of kind of entering a bull market himself. He's got a limited number of on-card rookie autos. He's got some great cards. He's moved around a little bit, which maybe doesn't help his collectability. Manchester City doesn't have a great domestic collector fan base here in the US. But like I said, he is playing for a very good club team. And I think one of the other things to note is that it looks like Norway is likely going to qualify for the World Cup. And you've got to just believe that he's got a 3-goal game in him in the World Cup group stage, right? Like, I have this feeling that even though Norway is not destined for greatness, I wouldn't think in the latter stages, that there is a spike to come for Haaland. The question that I have is not really that. I feel that'll happen. And it is a reason that I try to buy Haaland cards when I can. But the question I really have is, can he exhibit the same growth patterns that Ronaldo and Messi and Yamal have had? Messi and Ronaldo didn't do anything of late to earn their growth. All of the stuff that they've done to earn that growth is in the past. And frankly, even Yamal, if you think about what he's done lately, most of what he did to earn the respect and earn that market investment was in the Euros last summer. So, Haaland has certainly won a golden boot in the toughest league in the world since then, and his team is competitive. They had an off year last year because of injuries, but he plays for probably the best manager in the world on probably one of the top 5 club teams in the world, and has a pretty good shot at making the World Cup. So right now he's not surging, but I think there is more to come from Haaland. But if we're just looking at, breadth of market today, he's not had the surge that the others have had. Someone who has kind of come on late here and had this surge is Diego Maradona. And so in the conversation, what's interesting is, in this conversation of okay, Ronaldo cards and Messi cards have gone up, will that ripple out to other greats, right? And I think we all have this accepted, or most of us have this accepted tier where Messi and Ronaldo And then Maradona and Pele from those generations before are like that next level, right? And so Maradona was pretty steady throughout the year. But in the past 3 months, he's seen 36% growth. And really, you see kind of at the tail end here in September, these stairs are starting to kick in for him. So I thought that that was very interesting because for a while, as I was thinking about this topic, Maradona was going to be one of the ones who was down. Like he was down into September year to date. And now he's had these couple spikes with some nice rookie sales lately. And he is featured in the Club World Cup Prism set, has some case hits in that set, so that should help his market. Obviously passed away, so he doesn't have the ability to sign autos anymore. I haven't seen any new products that have had sticker autos of his, so I don't know if there's many stickers left out there, but his market is up, so that's good to see. Mohamed Salah, obviously Premier League winning side last year, up 57% this year, so his market is doing well. Surged, in the time that they won the league, that May to June period has a major surge. Then that summer drop off that you kind of see a lot in other sports too, that off season fall off, surges back up around the time of preseason, and now he's kind of like just kind of trickling along here. Excuse me. Excuse me. So you haven't seen that like stair-like surge in terms of the bull market that you might expect. His growth was mostly achieved through the on-field securing of the Premier League title, but still up 57%. You can't. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, right? Kylian Mbappe is another interesting one. Pretty steady most of the year. Has a dip in May as Real Madrid kind of crapped the bed, which maybe we should have just retitled this post, Why Real Madrid has crapped the bed and why their cards have crapped the bed. And that probably would have made Beto very happy. But I think what you've seen throughout the summer and really kind of pick up a lot of steam here lately in August and September is that his cards have been surging. So I think you're getting this recognition from people who are either figuring out this part of the hobby or people who have been in it for a few years that have looked around and said, okay, if the Messi cards go up and the Ronaldo cards go up and Yamal cards go up, Kylian Mbappe has already won a World Cup. He is on arguably one of the top 5 club teams in the world. Probably not even arguably. He's on one of the best club teams in the world. He has a chance to play in and win maybe 2 or 3 more World Cups on a great national team. Why are his cards so low, right? And so I think that's what's being recognized in the market is that Mbappe represents an investment opportunity relative to the growth in the other cards. So his cards have gone up. Kind of an interesting one is Neymar, who's truly done, kind of like Messi and Ronaldo, hasn't really done a ton to cover himself in glory here in the past year. Moved out of Saudis back in Brazil, I believe, but is not really in the headlines in any way, yet his market is also up 22%. Some of that, I believe, is just kind of like hobby nostalgia. He was the it player for so long, especially when ultra modern soccer cards were becoming popular through 18 through 20. Kind of in that pre-COVID boom. And then, he's been up 22% this year. I mean, he hasn't done a lot. I don't have a ton to say about it other than his cards are up. Phil Foden, kind of an odd one, had a terrible Premier League season, but has recovered as of late. His summer was wild. Ups and downs, ups and downs. He's getting back to where he was around the turning point of the year. He's still down year over year. Zidane has spiked up lately. I kind of file this in the Maradona camp where, people are recognizing that if all these other cards have gone up of Ronaldo and Messi, then these other greats are undervalued as a result of that. So, what you have is you have a 18% growth this year or in the past 6 months, which I think is excellent for the Zidane market. You're really starting to see people look at his rookies, and even though they are a sticker, which is a major major kind of roadblock to overcome, especially if you're trying to attract new eyeballs, but it's up 18%. Bukayo Saka up 22%. Starboy, what can I say? Kind of level throughout the season. They exit the Champions League semifinal in a disappointing way. His card still went up. And in a more controlled fashion, they have, you kind of have seen that spike through August and into September, although it's tapered off as of late. Doesn't sign a ton, so he doesn't have a ton of like huge cards, but it is interesting to see. Christian Pulisic, the last great American hope, is up 28% this year, which was surprising to me. I would have thought his cards, he had a surge earlier in the year, but I would have thought he tapered off. But you have a huge surge in May. He played well with AC Milan, but then he backed out. He basically skipped out on the Gold Cup, which was not great. And his cards kind of petered along through the summer, took a dip, but have spiked back up here. He's up 28%. I feel like his graph, if we're looking at this in February, is going to be up even more because, like I said, we haven't really talked a lot about the World Cup coming up. This is not a pre-World Cup show. I'm just kind of examining the market right now, not trying to predict the future, because I think we're in a surge right now and it's not World Cup related yet. But I do suspect if you're talking about one player that is going to surge in the months ahead of the World Cup, it would be him. Pele, not really trailing Maradona, like not following him exactly. He had a dip in the summer and he's kind of had some stairs and then dropped off, and now he's got stairs again. So he could be entering a bull market for Pele, but he's only up 2% in the past 6 months. Going back to Bukayo Saka, there was a question, is he hurt? And I think the answer to that is he is currently hurt, but not on a long-term basis. Pedri, hugely responsible for Barcelona's success in La Liga last year, and I think that's represented in the growth in his chart. He's up almost 50% in the past 6 months. You see that huge surge through May into June, and then kind of a tapering off through the summer, and he's leveled off now. He does not play in a hobby popular position, but he is one of those key rookies from the 2020 class, again, like Jude, like Musiala. So he does have that ability as like a cornerstone member of the ultra-modern soccer card hobby, and people still collect his cards, and he's a popular player. So I do not have Pedri derangement syndrome. Thank you very much. Ballon d'Or. So one of the things that I talked about is that Card Ladder is somewhat limiting in that it only gives you 48 players in the index. And so it doesn't have a lot of the newer players. I would love the ability to make my own player index. Believe me, I email Card Ladder every 2 weeks on this topic, and they always reject me. But it doesn't have player index customization as of yet, so we're going to have to do our own work here. One of the things that I always try to look at when I'm judging a player is gold chrome autos. So I think, if we're talking about soccer cards and it's a major player, they should have a chrome auto, gold chrome rookie auto. And there's enough movement of those cards in terms of sales that you can try to extrapolate some relevant information. If you go to like a black of 10 or a red of 5, there's just not enough transactions, right? So we have an early, and here we go gold lava because they are numbered. And I wanted to compare apples to apples. So I wanted to have a relatively recent sale, both in a raw format, both auctions. So in July, we have a $299 gold lava sale for Endrick, rookie, Wookie. And then in September, 3 days ago, you have a $327.78 auction sale, which would be about a 9% bump. Again, it's not scientific. We don't have a player index for Endrick. We don't have a player index for Gavi either. Sorry, Beto. Desiree Doué also lacks a player index, which is surprising. Most of the PSG players do not have an index. This one was more stark. So Champions League finals in May. In June, you get a sale of $250 for his gold. This is a paper, non-auto rookie. And then just a week ago, you have a $406.05 auction sale. So a substantial increase on the Desiree Douay market, even after the Champions League success. So I think that that's one of the things that is interesting here is that just, even after that surge that should have come from the Champions League win, he's still kind of forecasting up, even though PSG plays in a league that nobody cares about or follows. And the current season of Champions League is not really kicked off yet. Okay, so we looked at price action. We've seen that indexes for soccer are going up dramatically. We've looked at the cause of that index acceleration, and we've seen that although it is dragged along by messy rookies, there are multiple players with multiple cards that are kind of pushing it up. We've looked at the breadth of the surge. My hypothesis was that it was limited to 3 or 4 people. And kind of what we've seen from the data available through Card Ladder is that more than 70% of the player indexes represented on Card Ladder are up, which would indicate a bull market for soccer cards. That does not mean that every player is going up, right? Players that nobody cares about, that have no collectability, that are on teams that are not likely going to have any spike, those cards probably will not go up. In the same vein, the cards that are not collectible, even of good players, will also probably not go up, right? So you're to $299 Aqua Speckle, the purple platypus that HQ always loves to throw out at us. It is unlikely, possible, but unlikely, that the bull market reaches those cards. We're talking about not just high-end cards, because it's applied to mid-end too. I mean, we looked at cards that are selling only for a couple $100. But what you want to look at is the better cards of the better players. The last thing we have to check on is what we call cross-market confirmation. So what I'm looking for here is it possible that the general sports card market is just dragging soccer along with it, which is kind of what happened in the COVID boom, right? Cards surged in general. Soccer cards surged not as a leading cause, but it was really a byproduct of the overall surge, right? And that's why you saw crazy stuff like base cards selling for obscene amounts of money, right? An Erling Haaland Sapphire PSA 10 base rookie was selling for 4 figures. That's now a $200 card, not going to go back to that $1,000 level in this bull market, right? So what we want to do is we want to compare sports cards generally versus soccer cards specifically and see, are we outpacing that market, right? Like, is this truly a soccer card boom, or are we just part of a more general bull market? And my thought was that we were part of a more general bull market. And you've definitely seen this at the high end. Like, you'd have to be not paying any attention to social media to have missed, the Kobe and MJ dual auto sale, right? Like $13 million, whatever Mr. Wonderful bought it for. You've seen that ultra high-end cards are going up. And so that has probably driven some soccer cards also to go up. But then the question is, the market as a whole, how is our soccer card market reacting compared to sports cards in general? So we look at the Card Ladder 50, okay? And the Card Ladder 50 is 50 cards that the company Card Ladder has selected that represent the total sports card market, right? So they've got football, baseball, basketball, 1 or 2 soccer cards, hockey, golf. I think there's a tennis card. And so it's kind of like the S&P 500, right? Like, these are the cards that dictate the health of the overall market. And what you see year to date is that cards are up, sports cards are up 28%, which is great, and kind of trickled up for a while and have surged in a similar fashion to what we've seen for soccer surged of late. If we look at the past month, Card Ladder 50 is up 6%. And so over the past month, you see it is kind of like almost like multiple bell curves, right? Just that parabolic effect for those charts, which is interesting. Now let's look at soccer. So remember, year-to-date card ladder up about 30%. Year-to-date soccer up almost 200%. 7x, almost 7x more growth in the soccer card market than there is in the card ladder 50. Remember, card ladder 50 is up 6% month to date. Soccer is up 70% in the past month. Crazy. So 10x the overall sports card market. And, there's probably a lot of contributing factors to this. I think it is obviously the Messi and Ronaldo and Yamal sales kind of dragging everything else with it. We also haven't had a ton of, and I don't even know, this could cut both ways. Like, we haven't had a ton of new soccer product, which means people are probably spending that money on singles. But then again, when a new product comes out, the market does usually surge because those initial sales are usually high. So I don't know what to make of that. It is kind of wild, right? But for those of us who live it every day, right? Like the guys who are in this chat, if you're watching this back later, like the guys who are participating in this chat, myself, like we're in it every day and we're pretty, I do a little bit of other sports. Some of us do a little bit of other sport, but we're predominantly soccer collectors. And it is very interesting to kind of look at this data that Card Ladder presents and kind of think about, well, is it respective of our experiences buying and selling soccer cards, right? Is it are you feeling that same kind of surge, or is that surge kind of restricted more to the high end part of the hobby? Yeah, so let's do some question and answers. I'm going to go back through and look at some question and answers and see if we can talk. What about equal weighted? Say more about that. I don't know what you mean. A lot of comments about Barcelona, though. Will it trickle down to purple platypuses? I love these people. Ooh, Ronaldinho's chart is strange. Interesting. We might have to take a look at that. Let me see if I could go back to pull up Ronaldinho here. That's not what I wanted to see. Is that what I wanted to see? No. Where? Ah, here we go. All right, let's see if we can find. Does Ronaldinho have a player index? Let's see. Would help if I could spell. Ah, he does. Okay, Ronaldinho. Whoa, wild. 6 months. 6 months up 7%. Oh, see, they only have 9 cards in the Ronaldinho, and it looks like it's all rookie stickers. You can't even go by that. So see, some of this is the data that Card Ladder is using is not good data. You hear data scientists all the time talk about good data, bad data. This is bad data because it's only looking at that Campeonato sticker. No modern cards, no ultra modern cards, no autographs, just the sticker. It's like the PSA 10. There hasn't even been a sale of a PSA 10 sticker. Can't go by that. Sad to say. Sad to say. All right. I do think the big sales are dragging up the whole thing, as one Messi sale is as big as every other one combined. And I think that's true. It is very difficult. I kind of dug into, I'm not going to bog down the video with this, but I kind of dug into the like the formula for the Card Ladder index, at least in terms of how much they publish. And they did emphasize that even though a card has had significant sales, like that does not necessarily mean that they've overweighted that sale. But it's going to take someone smarter than me or who can interpret the data better than me to kind of figure that out. I think what we're all feeling, if you're in this market buying and selling cards, is that what HQ is saying is definitely true, right? That these massive sales, the ones you read about, they're flashy, but it's not, this isn't stuff that's happening to us every day. First of all, it's a small segment of collectors that are cashing in on this. But I think the general thought and kind of reading the tea leaves is that the people that are selling those cards are also reinvesting into the market. And now that, you hear sports cards as an asset class, right? Like this is talked about, Mr. Wonderful talking about it on CNBC. I think, especially from what I've seen, the folks that I follow, the people that have sold good cards, and I've sold some messy rookies. I've reinvested that into other stuff that I like, and I think that that's, to me, the biggest lesson in most of all of this is that even if the market's surging, if you're able to capitalize on it as a seller, I think that's great. I'm not one to like buy the FOMO. And I think we were all somewhat guilty of this because it felt like these messy rookies are all going up. I need to get one now before they go up forever. And that's fine. But I think the thing that kind of I come back to is I collect what I collect. Most of my PC behind me is Arsenal to 10 and under. That's just my team, obviously. Like, that's who I collect, and I try to stay true to that. I'm not chasing. Like, I don't care if Declan Rice's market is up or not. You know what I mean? I'm not chasing somebody else's checklist here. Like, we all have our little projects that we like to do, and I feel like the people who will make it through the surge and not get burned if there is a bear market eventually on the other side of this are the people that stay true to, what makes you happy. They always say collect what you like. Like, it's a euphemism that's thrown around. But, I think collect what you know and collect what you have collected and have loved. And what should happen if we're truly in a bull market is that cards that you have not seen or had the opportunity to buy before should come to market. Because if collectors see that the market is going up, some of them are going to say, well, maybe it's time I, take this Martin Odegaard out of the case and try to sell it. It's a one of one. Maybe it's time I take this Mesut Ozil Gold Power out of the case and try to sell it. So there will be new opportunities to buy stuff that you have not necessarily had the opportunity to buy before because the time happens to be right to sell. Martin says, I know no one like that, right? We've all been guilty of FOMO. And I think a lot of what is driving this particular surge is a combination of FOMO and also opportunity, right? Like a fair amount of opportunism. Like, there are new people who don't collect soccer predominantly coming into the space because either they want to chase the GOAT and they thought that Messi was undervalued relative to other GOATs, which is probably correct. They know in the back of their heads that there's this thing called the World Cup coming to America, and they think that will lead to a surge in soccer cards. And that's probably a different video. That probably should be a HQ BTL combo video where we look at, was there really a surge last time and when did it happen? Because those of us who have been collecting long enough to have been in during the World Cup in 2022, we will, like, anecdotally, I could tell you that surge never came. Like, the market was going down in a widespread way. There was pops for some players that had crazy games, but it was not a widespread surge. So, is it fantasy or reality that we'd have a surge this time? But I think those things are kind of mixed in the pot that are leading to this current kind of craziness, volatility, even though it's positive volatility that we see in the market. Yeah, then you have this. And so this goes to a good point too, right? Every Messi I've sold since Chicago is worth a lot more now. I've been tracking, like, I had a show a few weeks ago where we gave away a Mundi Chromo Messi rookie PSA 8. And I think I had valued that thing at like $1,500 or something like that, maybe $1,800. And I think it sold for $5,000, like a few times in the past couple of days, right? So you could do that, right? You can live that experience of like, I sold too soon. I didn't sell at the top. And you see this all the time for people holding on to stuff, right? They want to sell at the absolute peak. Like, I still made money on that card. I'm very happy with that. I'm not going to begrudge myself like not waiting to the absolute peak, because a lot of people were thinking the same thing in 2021, and then 2022 happened, and then 2023 happened, and then 2024 happened. And those people are either sitting on their losses, hoping that they can pull an Ansu Fati and score a goal and recover, or they realized those losses. And a lot of those people left the hobby. I think it's a fickle thing, right? It is a hobby that we try to enjoy, that we're passionate about. But a lot of us, myself included, are selling cards to kind of fund the hobby too, right? Like I'm not just constantly sinking my own personal money into this. I have sunk a lot of it, but the idea is I want it to be somewhat self-sustaining. So I'm selling cards to buy the stuff that I want to put in the case behind me. And I think if you stay true to that and you're buying stuff that you love and stuff that you enjoy and you're experiencing it in a community, just kind of follow along down below, in a community of like-minded collectors, it could be a lot of fun. And it's a wild ride. It's been a crazy year. I can't believe, like, we saw the stuff that was happening around SoCo and the National. I just can't believe the way that the messy market continues to surge. But we were saying, HQ and I did the same video in the spring about the Yamal market. And so it's like, what's next? And that's the fun of it all. What's next? Where's the next opportunity? What's the next fun thing that's going to take off? I don't know, but if you do know, send me a message or join the Discord, bit.ly/BTL Discord, and let us all know. And then until next time, I am Breaking the Law, coming to you live from the iHeart Cards studio. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks.